Hello, and welcome to Module 6, where we're going to be talking about when systems fail and resisting the system. You're going to be reading 4 different selections of people who were really incredible, who wanted to change the system in significant ways. I think the readings this week will be very insightful to you and give you some really interesting models for leadership under very challenging times. Now, these leaders came from various different systems, and these were all systems that had deep flaws. Perhaps they were not all bad, but they had some flaws. The first one you're going to be reading is from Frederick Douglass. Now, Douglass was an American social reformer. He was an abolitionist, an orator, a writer, and a statesman. He escaped from slavery in Maryland, and he became a national leader of the abolitionist movement in Massachusetts and New York. And he gained great notoriety for his oratory, his incisive anti-slavery writings. Douglass was a firm believer in the equality of all people, regardless of race, or color, or national origin. And he was also a believer in dialogue and making alliances across racial and ideological divides, as well in the liberal values of the United States Constitution. When radical abolitionists, under the model of no union with slaveholders, criticized Douglass's willingness to engage in dialogue with slave owners, he replied, "I would unite with anybody to do right and with nobody to do wrong." So kind of inspirational, I think, with that particular leader. Your next one will be on Eugene Debs, one of my favorite figures that maybe you've not heard much about. So let me explain a little bit about Debs to you. He was an American politician and an activist. He declared himself to be a socialist a little bit later in life, although he started out as a Democrat. And the time period, it was turn of the century, turn of the 20th, 19th to 20th century. He was one of the founding members of the Industrial Workers of the World, the IWW, and he ran for president on the Socialist Party of America 5 different times, all of course unsuccessfully. Debs was instrumental in founding the American Railway Union and was one of the nation's first industrial unions. He was central to the Pullman Palace Car Company strike, Wildcat strike, in the summer of 1894. And he managed to sort of pull together one of the first unions. However, the President of the United States at that time, Grover Cleveland, broke the strike with the U.S. Army and arrested Debs, threw him in prison for 6 months. He also served another time in prison too, because he ran when he was running for President of the United States. He managed to speak against the American participation in World War I, and that led to his arrest again in 1918 under the Sedition Act. He died. He was released from prison after just a year or so in prison, in one of the most striking eulogies for Debs, he said, "That old man with burning eyes actually believes that there can be such a thing as the brotherhood of man." And that's not the funniest part of it. As long as he's around, I believe it myself. So, that's Eugene Debs. So I hope that you enjoy reading his statement to the court. You'll also be reading about Mahatma Gandhi. You probably know quite a bit about him. He resisted the system, the colonial system in India, and led to really the overthrow of the British colonial rule in India. And then finally, there's Nelson Mandela. Oh boy, somebody that I deeply admire, and I hope you do too. Mandela's selection is called "I'm Prepared to Die." I think you're going to find this fascinating too. What an extraordinary person Nelson Mandela was. So I hope you enjoy the readings this week, and I hope it adds insight into your framing of leadership and professionalism. And I will look forward to what you write this week, both on your discussion forum and in your paper, and I will see you next week.